So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Biden administration has a new rule on independent contractor classification coming out, and we need to talk about this. Now, you've probably already seen the headlines. New rule on independent contractor can have a profound impact on business, that the new rule could upend the gig economy, that businesses will struggle to classify workers as independent contractors, and it goes on and on and on, and it's pretty substantial. And so we need to break down what this new rule looks like. And, if you could see me right now, you'd see that I'm doing it in air quotes because it's not quite a new rule. And that's important to understand when we're talking about it today. In 2021, the Department of Labor put out a new rule called Independent Contractor Status under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And this one in 2021 kind of changed the game. It took the five economic reality factors which guided whether or not it was an independent contractor or an employee, and sort of limited them. They said that there's two factors actually: the nature and degree of control over the work, and the worker's opportunity for profit or loss were core factors, and they were the most important factors when considering an employee's overall status, this worker's overall status as an employee or an independent contractor. And I frankly think that makes the idea of a weighting system makes it a little bit more difficult because, these are things that are really, they're important, but weighting them against other factors feels like it adds a level of complexity. And so then there are three other rules that are non-core, less probative, and less important. And that's the amount of skill required, the degree of permanence of the working relationship, and whether or not the work is ultimately part of a unit of production. And so this 2021 rule kind of changed the game. It changed a long-standing tradition of interpretation within the Fair Labor Standards Act. It changed how the Department of Labor has historically analyzed independent contractor classification, because historically the Department of Labor has considered employment as a whole, as sort of a holistic view of what employment is. And so there's a lot of discussion about how this could end the gig economy and up in trucking and do these things, but ultimately what we're seeing is a return to the pre-2021 status. This bill will, by the way, be effective March 11th. And I say bill, I mean this ruling from the unelected Department of Labor is going to be effective March 11th. And as a result, there will be more argument about whether or not an employee is an independent contractor or an employee. There will be a lot of argument whether or not a worker is an independent contractor or an employee under this reinterpretation of a long-standing act that's going back to again about 3 years ago. And this is consistent with the ultimate problem of labor relations law. Because the Department of Labor is unelected and driven by appointments from the presidents, because the National Labor Relations Board is unelected and driven by presidents, you have this snip snap effect that constantly creates confusion within the business environment and the worker environment as a whole. I mean, consistent. This was only 3 years ago in which this more specialized view of the Fair Labor Standards Act was taken, just 3 years ago. And so people will, constantly have whiplash with respect to what the future might hold. And so I would propose, although I would propose that Senate, and Congress should actually vote on these important bills rather than having unelected bureaucrats define these things and then they be wishy-washy based on presidents, but instead actually have definitions and have democracy, true democracy, take place with respect to the laws that we have to respect. And that's what really is, I think, very frustrating from a human resources perspective, is that this, can consistently sway with the wind, and we just have to wait for another interpretation. So, will this upend trucking or independent contractor? Well, not if you believe that it was upended prior to 2021. If you think that which led to the growth of Uber and DoorDash, et cetera, et cetera. If you think that those things were upended during that time, then sure. But ultimately, this is just a return to the normal. Let me know what you think about this new classification in the
What do you
comments down
think about
below.
today's
Does
video?
this make sense?
Please
Was the
comment down below.
two-factor
Like,
more
share, and
relevant, made more
subscribe. It
sense?
really helps
Let me
out.
know.
And I'll see you on
Like,
the
share, and
next one.
subscribe, and we'll see
Bye,
you on the next video. Bye,
guys.
guys.